It's a major. Yeah, yeah. We're going to have to, someday, not today, but someday you're going to have to meet the county manager and go over other business. Because the information that we had tonight is a far cry from what we've ever had. I'm not saying it's wrong.
No.
But we all have to be on the same page.
Yeah, I think the way I'm recalling that we said something else. This might even be the first
We need those tomorrow? Those maps that they have tomorrow? You're getting one for Pete? Yeah, I better. I don't know where it is. As soon as Carol sits down, we're going to start. Okay, councilors and Mayor Luke, I'd like to call the meeting back to order, please. And where are we going from here, Madam Deputy Clerk?
Thank you. Through the chair, we now have our presentation part of the agenda. And at the podium is Jerry Sacarina from Tourism and Economic Development to update committee on the 2017 Student Startup Program.
You were on.
There we go. I'm sorry. So first and foremost, it's a privilege and an honor to be in front of council again and staff with more good news about the program that council seen as an important component of their corporate strategic plan. You know, we always talk about the youth and the entrepreneurship and everything, and I will apologize, but I ran overtime yesterday, so staff said shorten the presentation up and keep it quick. So you'll see my slide presentation is a little bit on the Jenny Craig side. But the neat thing about this is that the program is growing exponentially. Last year, we had 84 applicants, and we had a bunch of sponsors that made that happen. We were only able to fund 43 students. This is what our sponsorship looked like this year. And if you take a look at that, and you put dollar values to that, not including what Norfolk County put into it, it's over $22,000, $22,300 to be exact. And that does not include, when you see supporters, there's some supporters there that provided in-kind contributions and advertising and whatnot, and extended their services. That enabled us this year to sponsor 94 businesses out of 188 applicants. So to put that into perspective, can you imagine if we had 94 brand new businesses start every month? I think we'd all be pretty happy with that. And that's what our July was for our department. You'll remember that we came back last year, or early this year, riding on the coattails of last year, and we took an award provincially for our work. And I'm happy to report that we took a national marketing award for this program because of its complexity and how it grew. So this year I can safely say that we hit all 28 schools. Last year we hit 26 out of 28. We didn't quite hit 28 presentations. This year we were over 35. And the cool part of that is that we had, and I'll just go back, take a look at the partners on the very bottom right-hand side. You'll see where it says Haldeman County Economic Development and Tourism, and you'll see Grand Erie Business Center. Guess what? Our neighbors realized that we're onto something, and they said, hey, listen, would you come out and do a test pilot for us? Went there with less than 48 hours notice. Some of their students applied. They coughed up the money for anybody that was in Jarvis. Jarvis was their test. And as council will see in their package, the nonprofit outside on page 2 is that Community Futures that's entailed that they are going to try and make this happen in Haldeman County for next year. The applications did not change. We've seen a majority of them, grades 6 to 8, and some of them were mind-blowing, from grooming guinea pigs to lifeguard to selling pet rocks and anything and everything in between. The imagination was their only limit. So when we take a look at that, and we take a look at 94 businesses funded and 107 students helped, it was great. You'll see on the slide where it says 34 received bonuses out of 40. You'll remember from the criteria that to get the extra $100, you have to submit a final report with a picture of you doing your job. Guess what? We only got 34 that met those criteria, and thank goodness, because we didn't have any more money. We were at the $22,300 on the button. So it was really neat to watch some of these students, and I will tell you that students face opposition and challenges just in business like everybody else. And you know what, at the end of the day, when we're all going home, we want to be happy. And so I'll just give you a couple of things if you haven't had a chance to read through your document in front of you. We had a couple of out-of-town sponsors, but we also had parents that said, way to go. We also had students that came in and chimed in and said thank you. But I'd like to read you the one that really struck a nerve with the entire county staff that's seen it. It said, "I'm sorry to inform you that I never cashed the check, nor did I make an attempt to start my company. I knew it would be the right thing to send it back. The program is amazing. Nadia." Grade 6. So whenever somebody says students are irresponsible or that students aren't honest and they don't have that passion and they question whether or not we should be funding the youth, that just reaffirms everything that I've been doing for over 20 years, that kids are honest and they send the checks back. This isn't the first time, but this is the first time that we've seen it in Norfolk County. So thank you to council and to all the sponsors that made this a success for this year and put us on the map nationally.
You are well within your limit. Thank you very much. Questions? Mayor Luke.
I don't have a question. Could I make a very quick comment?
You can do whatever you wish.
I want to, on behalf of council, Mr. Chair, thank you, express to Jerry and all those folks that worked so hard. Want to congratulate you and thank you for the success. A program initiated by this gentleman, and everyone got on board. The last 2 years, as you say, exponentially it's grown. But Mr. Chair, we often are told, what are you doing for youth? Thank you.
Any further speakers? You see, the mayor speaks for us, and you spoke very eloquently, and thank you very much for that. And certainly your program has been a wonderful inspiration to not only us, but other communities, as you have indicated, in other areas. And please, next year, we expect to have 2 rooms full. Thank you very much. Any further questions? Please.
If I may,
Please, you may.
I would like to draw your attention to this sheet here. If you haven't seen it, you'll see the different colors, okay? The orange ones are the ones that repeated their application from last year and expanded their business. And there was more that applied, but they got beat out by some of the other younger ones. So it's interesting to see. And I would also like to highlight that we do have a young lady in the audience that the Simcoe Chamber acknowledged as an up-and-coming business. So thanks to the Chamber as well. And thanks once again.
That young lady at the back there?
That would be her.
Would you like to introduce her, please?
I always get her last name wrong, but we'll introduce her as Lily.
Please?
Lily Vanden Hercook.
Very well done. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jerry. Any further questions? And again, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Deputy Clerk, where are we going now?
Through the chair, the next option for,
Oh, we need a motion, I guess, to receive the deputation. Mr. Mayor has moved that. Somebody needs to second it. Councillor Sonnenberg has seconded. All in favor? Motion is carried. Now, Madam Deputy Clerk, and I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Through the chair, sorry that I forgot about the motion, so thank you to the mayor and Councillor Sonnenberg for that. The next option that we could do on the agenda is to move to staff reports and discussion items again, and we can go to item 9A, which is staff report DCS 1754.
That would be page 32. Page 32. And who will be presenting this report? Welcome, Mr. Bond. Nice to have you.
Just give me a moment for just
Sure.
loading the presentation. Well, thanks very much. We're going to be presenting the establishment of the Planning Advisory Committee. This is the Smart Growth for Our Communities Act. It was a part of Bill 73, the update to the Planning Act that occurred last year. On September 20th, 2016, Norfolk County Council directed planning staff to draft terms of reference for a new volunteer Planning Advisory Committee. Staff went back, we revised the terms of reference that we had originally done, and then in November of 2016 we presented that terms of reference to Council with a few of the suggested changes and how to formulate the new Planning Advisory Committee. At that time, Council directed planning staff to revise the terms of reference to make it very clear that the members would be volunteers, that there would be at least 3 members and perhaps up to 5 public members. That quorum of the committee would be at least 2 volunteer public representatives. The committee now would include a chair to direct the motions on that committee. And it would be very clear that the committee would only review development applications related to public information and only provide Council with a recommendation. At that time, Council didn't want the committee to host public information centers, and all elements of the terms of reference would be kept generally the same as the staff had presented at the time. Staff brought back that terms of reference to Council on February 21st in 2017, beginning of this year. And at that time, Council voted against the recommendation and decided not to establish a PAC within Norfolk County. The formation of a PAC is a legislated requirement of the Planning Act. Planning staff have reviewed what other municipalities have adopted for a PAC to date and maintain our original recommendation of forming a new PAC. However, recognize that Council may wish to consider other options in response to the new Planning Act requirement. If you flip through your report, that report outlines that there are 4 options, options A through D. Option A is what staff had originally recommended, and that's the establishment of a new PAC, or Planning Advisory Committee, to review development applications. Option B would be to establish a new PAC to review only large-scale policy-related projects. Option C relates to the formation of a PAC using a subcommittee of one of the already formed committees within the county, so using one of the advisory boards, and they would review large-scale policy-related projects. Or option D. And option D is to establish a PAC that utilizes the various county advisory boards and that would review both large-scale policy projects and large-scale development applications. And the idea behind option D would be to select one member of those committees, and they would form a subcommittee when we needed them to review those large-scale applications. In review of the above 4 options, planning staff still recommend that option A is the most appropriate. Alternatively, though, option D may be appropriate as it provides a broad range or opportunity for various expertise to review policy and development. The creation of a PAC in this manner would be appropriate to organize as TDAB, the Agricultural Advisory Board, Norfolk County Environmental Advisory Committee, and the Heritage and Culture Committee already exists, and community planning frequently assists as a resource on these committees already. In review of the intention and purpose of a PAC, it's important to recognize that a PAC will help to facilitate greater collaboration and exchange of ideas between council and the public, and ensure that land use recommendations provided to council include citizens' perspectives. Planning staff are of the professional opinion that option A, which is the new PAC, would be the most appropriate in Norfolk County. And I'm happy to hear any questions.
Thank you very much for your report. Councillor Height, we'll start with you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess first off, we addressed this originally in February and sent it away, and now it's back. Even as council, we can't typically do something like that within a year. So I was very surprised to see this particular report come back in that time frame.
Maybe we'll ask the county manager to speak to that.
Probably the salient point here is that the law requires us to establish this committee. Council had every right to refer back to staff and ask them to draft a new report, which they did. But we have no choice. But you have choices in how you do it. You have no choice that you do have to do it in some way, shape, or form. And that's why this is back now. You have options, you have explanations, but to be clear, we have to go forward with some sort of decision to be in compliance with the legislation. And that sort of explains the timeline.
Good enough for me. So I'm looking at the other ones, and on page 37 it talks about Huron and Middlesex, where they basically they have another committee who deals with these things, and it's at council's direction. So I guess that's the closest to option C. But I don't actually see where they have two boards doing the same thing. And I know when we did our OP review, we had sent it both to the agricultural board as well as the ECDEV board for review. So we're already effectively doing it. I don't think we'll be handcuffed, but if we need to move that forward formally, we can certainly do that. Now, how do you do it over two boards?
Go ahead, please.
That's a very good question, and through the chair, I think Councillor Height addressed a very good point. We're already, in essence, doing this, and we're utilizing our resources to the best that we can. I think all we're, and I think the option D is how that would fit. It's just a matter of we're formalizing the process is all.
With that, Mr. Chair, I like option C, and I'm going to move the establishment of the Planning Advisory Committee be received as information, and that option C in the report be moved. I'm looking though for a few upgrades to that, or deletions actually, Mr. Chair. The Norfolk Environmental Assessor Advisory Committee can come out of there. So it would be basically just the TDAB, AAB, to aid in the review of large-scale policy-related projects such as the official plan review or in-house zoning bylaw amendment updates as directed by council. I don't want to see where our things get tied up anymore. Planning apps, it's slow. We all know it's a slower process. Unless it's an official plan or an OP or a zoning bylaw review, that's good enough for me. I think that'll get us the PAC that we needed without too much cumbersome trouble, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and you're moving that motion? We need a second. We need a seconder to discuss it. You're seconding it, Mayor Luke? So it's on the table for discussion. And I saw your hand. I'll go to the mayor and you get ready. Mayor Luke, please.
Well, we all have different ideas of what we want and how we want to accomplish them. Mr. Chair, the whole idea of this, according to the government, is, and I quote, increase citizen involvement. Number 2, ensure that land use advice provided to council includes citizen perspectives. And I'm not being disrespectful in saying, when I look through some of these examples, and I really appreciate to see what other done. I love Halliburton County on page 36. Council established a PAC that consists of all of council plus 2 members of the public. Boy, oh boy, are we ever getting public input on that committee, aren't we? Why would this council, 9 of us, sit with 2 people from the public to get public input when 2 or 3 weeks later we're going to sit, the 9 of us again anyhow, and go through the application and staff's thing? That defeats the purpose, in my opinion. I don't know how many they have on council. Now, if they have 1 person, they're getting public input. But if they have 8, and 1/5 of their committee is public, yep. And I don't know, I have a question through you to Matt, I guess, if you'll still take this as questions. But I read Peterborough, the last county, on page 37. So their council agreed, Mr. Chair, to establish a PAC, and we'll be making a public member appointment. Okay, the terms of reference states that the PAC will only meet at the wish of council. So if we want you to meet on certain issues, okay, and if we don't, I assume through you to Matt, that's legislation, that they don't have to meet on all applications?
Through the chair, that's correct. You could make that determination.
So, in other words, Peterborough or any other council could appoint a PAC, Public Advisory Committee, and then never ask them to ever meet to comment on anything, correct? I mean, you know.
Yep,
if
through
you
the
want
chair,
public- I'm
that's
sorry.
correct. It would defeat the purpose of the committee, but you're correct. You could do that.
Anyhow, I see flaws in this whole thing, and that's nothing to do with our staff. They just want to get on with legislation, and I'm with them on that. But I agree. We appoint these advisory committees that deal with many, many issues that involve land. Issues are already in place to go over 4 or 5 applications that will eventually come to this council, Mr. Chair. Already have a council member appointed to whichever committee or combination thereof. And I think that's something they can add to their agenda and would enjoy doing. It's just my opinion, so I support the motion.
Any further comments? Councillor, oh, sorry. Just before I go to you, Councillor Sonnenberg, I did promise Matt that I would ask him to speak, and I have you down too, Mr. Brunton, Councillor Brunton. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, and I'll make it short. It's just a quick point of clarification. Option C would be to utilize only one of our committees or advisory boards. Option D is where we get to use a combination of advisory boards or committees. So if council's decision would be to utilize various boards, depending on what the project would be, option D is the option they would want to go with.
Thank you. Councillor Brunton, I'm sorry I missed you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too have read through this, and amazing what they come up with. And I'm not referring to staff, I'm talking about the province. Page 37, I don't understand this. It says, and this one is from Huron County. It says, the committee will deal only with matters directed to them by council and does not deal with any planning applications under the Planning Act. Isn't that kind of the whole gauntlet in a way? Like, they have a committee, but they don't want them to do anything, I guess. Well, anyways, and the last one is Peterborough, the same thing. The committee is not responsible in any way for the general review of development-related applications under the Planning Act.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to answer your question, Councillor Brunton, some municipalities have chosen only to deal with policy-related projects, so they don't have their PACs look at development applications, but policy. So things like the official plan review or a comprehensive zoning bylaw.
So we can do that.
Correct.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back to the motion, I think, by Councillor Height. And it's option 3 you chose, C, but did you include the Ag Committee? Okay, I'd like to amend that and get rid of the Ag Committee and get the Economic Development Committee only, and only deal with policy and what was the other one? Policy and zoning.
Through you, Mr. Chair, you could just say not development applications, but other policy projects.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I think that's counter to your motion. Go ahead, Councillor Height.
Hearing the wisdom from my fellow councillor, Mr. Chair, I would remove the AG board because I suspect that council could direct any kind of information we want to any board we want. We specifically need this one for this bill, but I'm not changing the words. The zoning bylaw and the official plan stay. And then as directed by council, if maybe the clerk could read out what she has so far.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Height, that was going to be my question, if we could clarify what we're looking for in your motion. So that council directs staff to proceed with option C as outlined in the staff report with the exception of you had the Agricultural Advisory Board, with the exception of the Agricultural Advisory Board, sorry?
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just delete that, just say that it is formed within the Tourism, Economic, and Development Advisory Board
I got you, Councillor.
to aid in the review of official plan review or in-house zoning bylaw amendments. It's similar to C, but I'm just looking to clean it up as per council's direction.
Okay, through the chair, if I could just read this out, and I believe that it is, and that council directs staff to proceed with allowing the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board to aid in the review of the official plan or in-house zoning bylaw amendments.
As directed by council.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry, Councillor Height, I apologize. I wasn't paying attention. Sorry about that. Now, are we okay?
Well,
Madam Deputy Clerk, are you understanding what Councillor Height would like to put on the floor?
Well, I believe so. Sorry, through the chair. Councillor Height, do you mind just reading it one more time just to make sure that I have it? Or I can read it out to you if you'd like and see if I've captured it. I apologize. And that councillor direct staff to include the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board to aid in the review of official plan or in-house zoning bylaw amendments as directed by council.
That sounds good. Read the first sentence again, because.
And that and that council direct staff to utilize, I could add, to utilize the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board to aid in the review of official plans or in-house zoning bylaw amendments as directed by council.
Okay, it's messy, it works though.
Now, and you had something you wanted to add to that. Yes, you have
Speaking to the
floor.
motion here.
You have the floor.
Okay, based on that motion, and based on what Pam just mentioned, every zoning application will go through this committee. But if we only apply it, isn't that the way the motion reads to me?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe if we use Councillor Height's wording, that would be the case, because he has said official
right.
plan and zoning bylaw amendments. If his intention is policy projects, then it may be clarified to say policy projects, because if all of the OP and ZBAs do need to come before council to see if they need to go to PAC, that will increase the timelines of our development
Exactly,
applications.
you want the policies only.
That's right. Sorry about that.
Policy. Policy only. Policy only.
Correct. And I have another question when we're done,
Okay.
but it doesn't relate to
And
that.
I still have the two other speakers, so once we get this, I'll put it on the floor and then I'll go to my other two speakers. Go ahead. Okay, and the seconder has to agree that we are going to change this. And who was the seconder?
Mayor Luke.
And Mayor Luke has shaken his head, he has agreed. Okay?
Okay, sorry, may I just read
Please
this out
read it.
one more time, just to
We'll-
ensure
we'll
that I've
make
captured
sure we
it?
have it, and I haven't forgotten the two of you.
Okay, so I have in that council directs staff to utilize the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board to aid in policy review only.
Is that your intent?
As per council's direction.
Right.
Is that your intent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't you, it was Mayor Luke. All right, so we have all right on the motion, but before we put the motion, we go to Councillor Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This whole thing, to me, is an exercise in futility, but if we have to have this committee struck, I think ECDEV is the group to head it. I mean, what is the province thinking? We have a whole building full of planners with all kinds of degrees and you know, credentials, and now they want us to bring somebody off the street to advise us in our planning? What are they doing? But I'll support the motion as it is.
Councillor Sonnenberg, you've been on council for quite a while. You of all people should know, sometimes the government doesn't know what they're doing. Councillor Black.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think it's an added unnecessary layer as well. There's tons of public input, lots of opportunities for the public to get involved in planning matters without adding another layer. But through you to staff, I guess my concern is because really this isn't coming from this council, it's coming from above, from the province. Would this motion fulfill the obligations that we are under to have to comply with this order from above?
Yeah, through the chair, it would.
It would? Okay, and in a way, I'm not overly concerned with how it's set up at the moment. I would hope that if we were to say, let ECDEV do it, that they agree to do it. We certainly have to have their agreement. And I think it would be important as well, if we do pass this motion, that it be reviewed in 6 months to see how it's working, if the committee's, you know, still wants to do it, or maybe, you know, we should be doing it a different way. So I wondered if maybe we could include there in that motion a six-month review, or through to staff. Like, is that necessary that we put that in there, or would you just come back with that automatically to staff?
Through the chair, we report on other committees as well. So for instance, with the Committee of Adjustment, we do an annual report just to let council know how that's going. So if it's your preference that we do a biannual report, we could do that as well, or we could do an annual, whatever your preference would be.
I wouldn't mind seeing how it, because it's brand new, you know, I'd like to have some kind of staff report that tells us, you know, whether it's working or not. You know, we could probably see for ourselves. It'd be nice to have staff come back and give us some ideas. So could that be included in the
Well,
motion?
I don't know,
if
I'm
the
going to
mover-
ask the mover now and the seconder. The mover is shaking his head in the negative.
Okay, well then I'll move an amendment to include that.
They do that anyway.
Huh?
They do it anyway.
Well, the county manager, I see, has had some discussions there.
Do you wish to add to something?
If staff may be so bold, might we suggest a report at the 1-year anniversary? There's a distinct possibility this committee won't be called to review anything in the next calendar year. As council is aware, we've gone through the OP, well, we've gone through the first part of the OP review. The second part will happen shortly. And I'm not aware of us imminently about to look at our zoning bylaw in a comprehensive manner. Accordingly, it's unlikely that they'll meet within the first 6 months.
Okay, that's good enough for me then.
Okay,
Thanks.
so the motion stays as
No,
it is.
yeah, just leave it.
Okay, Councillor Brunton. No, Councillor Geisens is next, and then you, Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr.
Call me anything you want.
Manager, Chairman. Okay, we'll do whatever I call you. And
Doesn't matter to me.
theoretically, I guess I'm sitting here getting a little bit tired of what the province wants to shove down our throat. It's easy for them to say, well, you got to do this and you got to do that. And as far as I'm concerned, the last time I said I didn't want to see any part of that. All this is going to do is a little bit more, or more, not a little bit, but a whole lot more red tape that we're going to have to go through. I like what's being said about the motion that we're talking about. At least we do have some control. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
Mr.
that's all right. Councillor Geisens, I have you. Councillor Brunton, you are now on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just before you get to that, I was looking on page 34. It says financial services comments, and there's a $2,000 price tag in there for this. Would that still apply, and what is that for? We are not going to start paying the advisory committee stipends or whatever, or is that for like sandwiches, or would they get better sandwiches than we get, or how's that work? Could you tell me what that's for?
Yeah, through the chair, that would have been for option A, the establishment of a new PAC. So if one of the other options are chosen, that wouldn't apply anymore.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And no sandwiches. And also just one very quick point of clarification as well. If option C, which is on the table, is put forward, we should also put some wording so that staff can come back with the bylaw and a terms of reference for the PAC as well.
Okay. You want to come back with that? Mover, you all right with that suggestion?
Sure, I thought they would have did that anyway, Mr. Chair, but if you want it formalized, I'm good.
Okay. And Councillor okay. All right. Now, after all, any further speakers? Seeing none, could we have the Deputy Clerk read what we are going to vote on soon? Madam Deputy Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, through the chair. I think I have it now, but please advise if I have not. It's been moved by Councillor Height and seconded by Mayor Luke that staff report DCS 1754, Establishment of the Planning Advisory Committee, Smart Growth for Our Communities Act, 2015, which is Bill 73, amendments to the Planning Act be received as information, and that Council directs staff to utilize the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board to aid in policy review only, as per Council's direction, and further that staff report back to Council with terms of reference and a bylaw establishing the Planning Advisory Committee.
Does that sound kind of like you've said?
Deputy Clerk is awesome.
What an excellent articulated person you are. And Mayor Luke, are you certainly in that same frame? Thank you very much. Well, now you've heard the motion. It has just been beautifully crafted. All those in favor? Motion is carried. All right, Madam Deputy Clerk, where are we going now?
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, the next item on the agenda is, if the deputation is here, which is Andy Blackwood, we could move to that section, or we could move to other business.
You've changed. Yeah, just a minute. Just before you begin, the clerk
Yes.
will say something, or the deputy clerk. So just wait a moment before you begin, please.
Through the chair, just a reminder to the deputations, we have two. We will start with Andy Blackwood. You're not.
Michelle Grant.
Michelle Grant, sorry. No,
She's replacing
you're,
Andy.
you're Andy today, okay. And the second will be Ms. Barbara Seitz. So just a reminder to the two deputations that there is a strict 10-minute time limit, and the chair will remind you upon the 1 minute remaining mark. And
And each
Thank
of them
you.
have 10 minutes?
correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Your Worship and Councillors, thank you for allowing me to address you this evening once again on the proposal from Heritage and Culture concerning the future of Eva Brooke Donnelly Museum and Archives, which you have before you and to which I know you've given careful consideration. I believe that this proposal, which has been developed in consultation between the Heritage and Culture Department in the Norfolk Historical Society, addresses a number of the concerns of various councillors to the proposal put forward in July, and offers a forward-thinking, financially responsible plan for this most valuable and irreplaceable county resource. As the most councillors recognize, Eva Brooke Donnelly is already home to a vast collection of irreplaceable archival material which has been amassed over the past 117 years. As the county has discussed in the past, There is a great need for the centralizing of archival material, which is spread all over Norfolk. Eva Brooke Donnelly is the perfect place for such a centralized archives, and a county archivist is essential to this task. Centralization would be more efficient and economical over the long term, and with the digitization of these records, which is vital to their preservation, public access would be significantly enhanced. To show its commitment to this important task, the NHS is presently in the process of fundraising to try and update the technological elements of the archives, so that if this proposal goes forward, it will be easier for the county to move ahead with this process. As well, the proposal for an assistant curator addresses the problem that the museum has faced for past 9 months. After 70 years of operating Eva Brooke Donnelly, the NHS simply was not financially able to continue. And as a result, this incredible museum has been closed to the public for lack of a professional to guide it. The potential in this building is immense, and public support, though not always vocal, is very strong, as witnessed by its supporters here this afternoon, and over 1,700 names on the petition, which I believe you received yesterday. Even as a seasonal museum, it could, with a dynamic and forward-thinking curator, contribute so much to the rehabilitation and revitalization of the downtown, as well as serving as an ongoing showcase of the unique and irreplaceable history of this county. I know that cost is the overreaching concern here, but I would ask that Council not look at this proposal simply as a cost, but as a benefit. I am sure that councillors here who have working museums in their wards don't consider them simply a cost to be borne. They are a vital, vibrant part of their communities, and as such, contribute to their communities in ways that cannot be measured in dollars and cents. We in the Norfolk Historical Society believe that this proposal will make it possible to maintain a unique and irreplaceable part of this county's past, and can, with the county's leadership, both from this council and staff, take it forward into the future and benefit for all of Norfolk citizens. We urge you to vote in favor of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Any questions to the deputation? Yes. Councillor Height, please, if you would stay there, sure. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the deputation. You mentioned that you were going to work on digitizing the collection.
Yes.
Has that work been started yet?
It hasn't.
No?
It's in process. It's happening all summer long.
And how many years before it would be complete, do you think?
That would be addressed by someone in the archives. Give me 1 second. I'll ask somebody. She's here.
Okay.
Yeah. Robin? About how long will it take to digitize that process? 2 years? Years.
Right. Okay. One more second. Now, so you mentioned that it's a good feature to have it all centralized in the downtown location. And you also said that the museum was closed this year?
It's currently closed. The museum is closed for lack of a curator. We cannot effectively run a museum without a curator. We are not allowed to bring in or take out exhibits or move exhibits around without a curator. We don't have that skill or knowledge.
Okay. Wasn't it open this summer?
No, the archives are open.
The archives, but the museum was
That's
closed.
correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the building itself, as opposed to another building, how do you feel about that?
For the archival center, you recall, you're referring to?
For everything.
Well,
are you stuck on that building?
Well, we're rather in love with the building. Yes.
Okay.
It's a gem in the crown for Norfolk County.
It sure is.
Yes. Yeah, we are hooked on that building.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
More questions? Councillor Brunton, I think, did you have a question? No. Mayor Luke, then.
I just want to be really clear with Michelle, and by the way, thank you for your deputation.
You're most welcome.
You're supporting the recommendations in the report, so basically, from what I see, a full-time position for an archivist.
That's correct.
Would be in place to keep that resource available to.
It would allow us to bring all of the archives to a central area if that's the wish, and as well as to properly formulate the archives. Yes.
Okay. And also, you're in favor of the .5 assistant curator.
Correct.
And we'll get into the report later, but obviously there are some limitations to that. The report would refer to it as a seasonal community museum. You're okay with that at the moment?
We are correct.
Thank
Yes.
you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Brunton, please. No, more questions?
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I'll stand right here till
No.
we're ready.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I'll let you
everyone.
know. Any further questions to the deputation? Seeing none, we thank you very much for your deputation. So we need Councillor Height and Councillor Sonnenberg has moved and seconded that we receive the deputation as information. All in favor? Thank you kindly.
Through the chair, the next deputation is by Ms. Barbara Seitz, if she is in attendance.
Good evening, Chair, and everyone else here in the office, in the room, and the council that's going to hear the response to my deputation. And I hope I can hear you, and I apologize for not hearing you as I have a little sinus earache tonight. So I hope you speak up just a smidgen more. And if you're ready,